Toy Story. Yeah, I like it. Toy Story 4 introduced us to Forky, a spork that magically came alive when arms and legs and eyes were attached to it by a little girl. Now with a character like that, a lot of people thought the movie might delve into the nitty-gritty of how exactly the toys come alive and what makes them stay alive, but it really didn't. If anything, after Toy Story 4, I've got even more questions about how the toys being alive thing actually works, and I'm going to talk about them in this video. Now I'm not saying I'm the first one to come up with these questions and observations, this is just my take on them. So let's delve into my first question about the Toy Story franchise. Why didn't Buzz Lightyear know he was a toy? The main plot line of the first Toy Story film revolves around Buzz Lightyear coming to terms with the fact that he isn't a Star-Spangled Star Commander, but is in fact a child's plaything. The other toys, and particularly Woody, spend the movie trying to get him to understand that he's just a toy, but that makes things more confusing, because if they knew they were toys, then why didn't Buzz? You may think this has something to do with Buzz Lightyear being a new toy. Perhaps all toys, when they're fresh out of the box, believe they are the thing they're designed to look like. Well, that theory has a lot of holes, the main one being, if all new toys believe they are real, then why was Woody so confused that Buzz thought he was a real space ranger? Time and time again, Woody is shown to be a veteran of living the toy life. If all the new toys go through a period of believing they were real, then Woody would have known that Buzz was going to think he was a real space ranger. He might have been a bit more understanding of his situation. It's pretty clear that Woody never went through a phase of believing he was the real Sheriff Woody from the TV show he was based on. As we see in Toy Story 2, he didn't even know his show existed. Also in Toy Story 2, we see plenty of other new toys who seem to be very aware of the fact that they are toys when the gang visits Al's toy barn. All the toys there are well aware of the fact that they are in a toy store, except of course for the Buzz Lightyear figures. So why is the Buzz Lightyear range of toys the only range that for some reason doesn't seem to know they are toys? I don't know. I don't have answers for a lot of these questions, I just have the questions. Moving on to the next one. Why is Woody so secretive about his past? In Toy Story 4, another toy asks Woody when he was made, and Woody says he thinks it was around the 1950s. Now, this isn't particularly new information. In Toy Story 2, we learn that that's when his show aired, so it makes sense that he was manufactured somewhere around that time. But hearing it from Woody's mouth gives it a little bit of a different feel, because it definitely means that there's a whole period of Woody's life that he never mentions in the films. Don't believe me? Let me hit you with some straight numbers. The first Toy Story film was released in 1995, so let's assume the events of the film happened in a fictional version of 1995 as well. Now, Andy already owns Woody at the start of the movie and is already pretty attached to him, so let's just say Andy got Woody in 1990. Now, Woody says he was made sometime in the 50s. For an exact year, let's be safe and say 1955. So in the 35 years between 1955 and 1990, where the hell was Woody? Where was he? Did he have previous owners? Was he in a box? Was he in a museum? He never says anything about it. What the hell? You might think it's not really that important to know where he was in those years. We don't know every character's backstory from when they were made, and that's true, but as the films go on, it seems less and less likely that Woody would never mention this. Woody's entire story arc, particularly in Toy Story 3 and 4, revolves around his attachment and dependence on his child owners. There's a running joke in Toy Story 4 that he secretly believes Andy still needs him in some way, despite the fact that Andy is a grown man in college. Now, many people on the internet have theorized that Woody did have a previous owner, and it was Andy's grandfather. In the garage sale scene from Toy Story 2, Woody's mum says something about Woody being an old family toy. That's fine if that's true. But if it is, why the hell doesn't Woody ever talk about his previous owner? Maybe he didn't have a previous owner and he was just in a toy store or locked up in storage or in a museum or something like that. That could be true as well. You'd think he'd at least mention it though when faced with similar situations in other movies like we've seen. So where the hell was Woody between 1955 and 1990? I don't know. Again, I have no answer, sorry. Next question. Can these mother effers even die? There are dozens of scenes in the films where the suspense seems to be based around the chance of the toys being hurt or killed. The toys themselves seem to show a fear of it as well, but we are also shown dozens of scenes that seem to hint at the fact that they are invulnerable to all pain and death. Buzz and Woody have been in situations where one of their limbs have been completely removed but become fully functional again after being put back on their body. It's happened to countless other toys too. In Toy Story 4, Bo Peep's arm is held on by a piece of tape. It falls off all the time but works perfectly fine when she just whacks it back on. Now when their limbs become fully detached from the body, they don't seem to be alive, and they only become animated again when rejoined. So many have guessed that the toys have kind of a zombie rule to their death, where you can only really kill the toy if you destroy its brain or head. But in Toy Story 1, we see two dolls who have their heads missing completely, and they seem to be functioning just fine. There are also some toys like Etch-a-Sketch that seem to be alive without having any face or head to begin with. So they don't die if you rip off their arms or legs. They don't even die if you rip off their head. And of course there's all the toys in Sid's room that are just made of random parts, and they seem to be functioning just fine as well. In fact, that gets even more confusing because there's a baby's head that's attached to all the Meccano parts, and then the Meccano comes alive? Was that alive before it had the head? Did the head make it come alive? So the heads are magic? Even though there were those dolls that had no head and they were alive. How can they die? They can't die. Do they have to get ground to dust? Or just melted into liquid? Retroactively looking at the scenes where they're like, oh no, a car's gonna hit us. Who the F cares? Just get up and keep going. You can't die. How the toys feel and interpret pain seems to be a plot device that changes depending on what they need for the story. Sometimes Woody feels pain when someone steps on his head, and other times Woody's arm falls off and he's just like, damn boy, that's nuts. So can the toys die? Again, no answer for that question, sorry. Anyway, what other Toy Story questions and theories do you have that I didn't talk about? I mostly did this video to show off me and my girlfriend's cool Toy Story collection. That actually goes all the way down to the floor also. She's gonna be mad when I say it's me and hers, it's mostly hers. Anyway, the Toy Story franchise, I love it, but it makes no fucking sense. Thanks for watching.